At Delaware Orthopedic Specialists, you're never left in the dark. Not only are they the only fellowship-trained surgery center here in the state of Delaware, all of their providers are also specialists, which means that they're focusing on each and every part of the body specifically, so that when you come in with knee pain, you're getting a doctor specifically devoted to that. Wrist pain, wrist doctor, foot pain, foot doctor, so on and so forth. Why would you go anywhere where you're just going to get a general doctor that knows overall body when you can get somebody that knows the ins and outs of your exact injury? They're going to hold your hand and walk you through each and every step of the process so that you won't have any questions and you'll know exactly what you should be expecting. My family and friends trust DOS, and you should too. Give them a call at 302-655-9494 or head on over to delortho.com. Let them know that Talkin 215 sent you. And after they give you phenomenal care, head on over to Google, give them a great review.
Welcome to Talkin 215, your go-to podcast for everything you need to know about Philly sports. Whether you bleed green, trust the process, fly with the Flyers, or fight with the Fightins, this is the place where we break down Broad Street. Jake, Sean, and Joey deep dive into the heart of Philly sports culture, breaking down games, roster moves, and sharing the stories that make the 215 truly legendary. So grab a cheesesteak, settle in, and let's get to Talkin 215. Now here's your host, Jake Biasado.
We're sitting here talking 15-2 like some jackasses 2 weeks ago. And we said, yeah, there's going to be a game like the Jets last year. And there's going to be a game that we don't expect to win, maybe like the Chiefs last year, whatever. And what the hell was that? We got Tommy Stakes. Tommy, I was there, Stakes. He was there. We got the coach. And we got Papa Sean in the house. Gentlemen, let me ask again. What the hell did we just see?
I'll say this. It was a loss that wouldn't have this conversation if I'll give you the simple answer. If Saquon Barkley makes a routine 3-yard catch that he makes 9.9 out of 10 times. You lost the game way before that. You deserved to lose, but you still had that. If he makes that catch, we're talking more about the things that mask this team's deficiencies. So blessing in disguise or just a loss, who knows? But this team didn't deserve to win. They could be. Here's my take on it. They could be 2-0. They should be 0-2, but they're 1-1. That's kind of it.
Yeah, this was just a weird one. Like, this felt more like a week one kind of game than week one felt. I mean, this was a knockdown, drag out. This felt like I was watching like an NFL Films highlight from like 1977, just like a 6-3 slugfest where everybody's just running the ball. It was strange. I didn't get the feeling we were the better team. It just felt like I don't know. It just drug out, which is crazy because it was probably the fastest game we'll play all year. It was a loss. To answer your question, though, it was a big fat L, and we're going to have to go ahead and win. What is that? 14 out of the next 15, in order to land exactly where I had us at the beginning of the season.
Look, boys, I'm in a bad mood. All right, I've been in a bad mood since. With this game, I think you can come up with all the facts in the world you want.
You won't get drive into left field by Nick Castellanos.
My God, dude!
He's the best player on the team.
I'm sorry.
He heard me. He knew I was pissed. He knew my heart was broken, so he had to do it.
There we go.
Just so that everybody knows, Casty homered right as I'm in the middle of my depression episode here. No, but I feel like you could come up with a million facts and tell somebody something from a political standpoint. They're not going to change their political opinion. You could come up with a million facts, tell somebody from a religious standpoint. They're not going to change their religious opinion. You could tell me a million things about the Eagles and football, and it's going to be hard for me to change my opinion, but I have after this game. I absolutely have. And I don't care who hates it. I don't care who disagrees. I had a awakening, an epiphany. And it is, if you get 2 new coordinators and you have new players on both sides of the ball with those coordinators, you need to play preseason football. You need to. I'm done with the, can't risk the injury, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. There's things you could do to not risk the injury. Because guess what? In the preseason, we may have been able to find out that every time we run an RPO, every offensive lineman sprints to the goal line like they're trying to block for a Hail Mary. We might have figured out that wide receivers on the outside like Johnny Wilson are so amped up to play because they don't get any targets that they're going to be over rip the DB's jersey off. We might have been able to see different things like the Britton Covey flare pass doesn't work, doesn't set up anything. So what I want to say is if you have new coordinators, a new system on both sides of the ball with new players in them, play preseason. Because right now you're making the mistakes that you would have ironed out those wrinkles in the preseason in regular season, and it's costing you.
Would it help if I told you that it was raining, Coach?
No, it's not Brazil. It's not slippery. It's not the Super Bowl field. I'm tired of all the excuses. I'm tired of every excuse. Every single excuse on the planet, I'm tired of.
No, I mean, look, we're going to get into this Saquon thing. We have differing opinions on that. Obviously, yeah, we know that ends the game right there with the catch. But, Tom, like you mentioned, Coach, and Sean, like you mentioned, like there were so many things that went wrong leading into it. Tom, when we took the 7-3 lead, I thought you said it perfectly. You were like, stop playing with your food. Like, you got to put this team away. And we talked about in the preseason. How many snaps are we going to see from the backup quarterback? How many Kenny Pickett snaps are we going to see in the fourth quarter when we go up so big that we can just relax and all? I'm convinced as long as Jalen Hurts stays healthy, he's playing every snap of the entire season because this team is incapable of just getting a comfortable walk away with it lead. I mean, I was talking to my brother-in-law came over for the game last night. We were talking like, man, with that 17 season, we were just dominating teams, just putting them away, handling business, both sides of the ball, doing our thing. That 2022 season, we were dominating teams, putting them away. We were seeing backup snaps, Gardner Minshew in there doing his thing every now and then, like just handling business. And then we just see last year and this year, yeah, the record's been pretty good, especially the first 11 weeks last year, but never did you have a game where you were like, all right, cool. I can just sit back and enjoy. We're talking like, yeah, that Friday game. We were able to sit back and watch Sunday Ticket. All easy, all lackadaisical. We're feeling good. We got a week 1 win. And then we got Monday. So, yeah, we can still sit there and watch the Niners lose to the Vikings with Sam Darnold. We can watch the Cowboys get trounced. We can't say shit right now. We got our shit rocked in our house by an inferior team. Kirk Cousins on primetime. Also, want to jump back. Everybody on this pod said the home field advantage at the Link is better than at Citizens Bank Park. Argument's done. Done. Citizens Bank Park is the superior home field advantage. This is not a knock on the fans at all. This is what the players do in that environment. The Phillies at Citizens Bank Park in the postseason, more times than not, show up. The Eagles have shown with a raucous crowd. Tom, you were there. It looked and it sounded like it was going nuts until that last minute, and the Eagles just didn't step up.
I'll tell you what. It was going crazy at the start of the game, and really I feel like what took the wind right out of our sails was going for that 4th down and not converting it early in the game. Like, it felt like the swagger of the team just went out with that. Like, that was a great drive. I felt like getting down there, and I'm befuddled why that some of the decision making, the consistency in the decision making, and like everyone's really said, we could get into a million reasons, and I don't want to be singling out Saquon Barkley. What's unfair is that I expect more out of Saquon Barkley than anything else, than anyone else on this team. He's your best player, right? So when I say like he catches that ball, we win. Yeah, it's not fair to put that all on him. It really isn't. But like, if someone told me that that's all that needed to happen for the Eagles to win, I would say, yeah, take that 100% of the time. And the one time he drops it one time out of the 10 times he gets that ball, he drops it just once. So it's like,
let's get into that play.
The odds of winning there are so high. That's probably the highest odds you can create right there. Not our defense getting another chance. God, let's
get into that play. Like, obviously, yeah. And Coach Sean, I get what you're saying. It was a well drawn up play. 99% of the time he makes that catch, game's over. But here's my thing. Why even risk that 1%?
Right.
Why even risk? Like, I get it. I 100% understand where you're coming from, especially when you're saying like, well, yeah, when you know what the result of the game, it's easy for you to say we shouldn't have done that. But even right when it happened, before we knew the result, I was screaming, why the fuck did you not run the ball?
Yeah,
You have Saquon Barkley. You have an offensive line. You have the lead. They have no timeouts.
Yeah.
You run the ball there, and guess what? If you don't get it, you run that fucker again.
Yeah,
Go for
exactly.
it on fourth down.
Right. And then usually I'm a safe guy, but what makes the debate so hard is that it was a touchdown. It wasn't even just a first down. He was scoring.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so frustrating, because if he was covered and the guy batted the ball, then I could be like, horrendous call. Didn't even work. Whatever. It'd be a lot easier to settle on. But the fact that it was right in front of my eyes, I was 9 rows behind that. And I just was like, he has him. And I just was like, we just won. And I kind of looked away from the play because I'm like, we won. And I looked back and the ball's bouncing off the ground. And I was like, wait, what happened? And it was just.
Listen, I think the most egregious thing, and not even, I haven't heard it terribly much, but the most egregious decision was to kick the field goal on fourth.
Yeah.
Right? Just do it. If you're going to be aggressive, be aggressive. Go for it. Right? Do that same play right again. Immediately. Go right back to your superstar player. Say, no, you are going to get this play right.
Yeah.
Do it now, and you're going to catch the damn ball, and we're going to win this damn game. And even if you don't, you still make Kirk Cousins go, 93 yards?
Yeah, exactly. And then if they
Not
don't,
70.
field goal and it's tied.
Go to field goal range, but still, it's with 40. At least it's with less time. Well, again, you're saying if they do it after the pass, so even if you don't get it, they have virtually the same amount of time.
Okay, and then if you drop the ball twice in a row, guess what? You just deserve to lose. You lose that game if you drop it twice because you suck.
To be honest, you could have ran a play where he does that same thing, but someone else leaks out the other way and he throws some sort of trickery there and just get him. Or if it's open, throws him. I don't know. I'm trying to draw plays.
No, all you're doing is saying, "Yep, we were a dumbass for going for it in the first quarter. We're going to be the safe team now."
Now, yeah, that inconsistency was driving that. That's one of the little things. There's so many psychological factors in this game. That's what's so frustrating about it, because, like Joey said, we got 2 new coordinators. I want to expand on that a little. We got 2 new coordinators, and there's a lot of new players on both sides of the ball. So if people wanted immediate satisfaction, well, the Eagles told you that's not what we're doing. We're giving our young guys that we don't really know a lot about a lot of patience and time, and that's why this team looks like what it looks like. And really, what's supposed to be carrying us is the high-priced offense. Oh, they'll just win us games, but there's a new offensive coordinator, and we lost A.J. Brown. Those are 2 things you factor in, and you have to realize that at the end of the day, it's not going to be pretty up in the front of this season. It's just not. Maybe we need to adjust the expectations a little bit.
Yeah,
URL early, because it's just not ready. It's not ready yet. You can just see the ingredients, but it's just not ready yet.
Did somebody mention something about preseason earlier in this episode?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and I agree with that. I don't hate that take at all. I agree with that. And I was against preseason. I you know what I'll say? I'm not going to say I necessarily agree with playing the guys, but I do agree with the fact that it's definitely going to start you out a little bit slow. I don't know if you'll actually see them do that, but you're going to start slow if you do that. And that's what they're paying the price for that. You're right. They are.
And look, with this call, with the play call, you guys know where I stand. I think the play call was fine. I think the play call was perfect. This was the second time in the game we ran that same play. We threw it to Saquon where it was originally ruled a touchdown, but he was ruled down at the inch line, and then Hurts snuck it in. It was wide open. They had 9 in the box, and they were pinching middle because they knew it was coming. This play, which is it's not naked, but it's a dead PA rollout, which means the running back isn't even selling the play action. The running back is getting out into his route, even though the quarterback is turning his back to the defense to sell the play action, because the linebacker key is, boom, look, I'm looking right at the quarterback. He turned his back. It's a play action maneuver. If he's going to go straight past, he would never turn his back to me. But the running back gets out in the flat quick. You see the linebacker, edge, DB, safety, whatever it was that would have been guarding Saquon, bites inside, wide open. There's a built-in mechanism in there, and I think Barcher touched on this too, where if Saquon's guarded, if they play cover 2 and somebody's in the flat, Hurts just rolls right and runs. Maybe he slides, maybe he takes a knee, but that's still the same concept of the run. I'm going to play devil's advocate here and agree with both sides of you guys here for a second. I think the play call was fine. You don't have A.J. Brown. You brought in this quote-unquote young mastermind offensive coordinator that's supposed to scheme guys open, right? Scheme plays up, and he did. Guys, that's all we've been crying for. Last year, Brian Johnson would have just ran straight up a halfback dive with Miles Sanders or DeAndre Swift right up the middle.
Bubble screen.
Yeah, and we would have been like, everybody knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. I need something creative. This time we'd run something creative, and the $36 million back that we paid, getting a throw from the $220 million quarterback that threw it perfectly, just dropped the ball. That happens, guys. That happens. But it still was perfect. I know you're saying don't do the 1% risk, but here's where I'll agree on the flip side with you guys. And Sean, mainly you, I'm agreeing with here. If you ran it on third down, your intention is we're playing to run the clock out and field goal. That's our plan. Run the clock out, field goal, if you run it on third. Okay? If you pass it on third like they did, your intention is we're winning the game right here. One, because we don't trust our defense, but two, but first down ends the game. So to Sean's point, once that was incomplete, you already decided we are winning the game here mode, not field goal mode. We're winning the game here mode. So they did both sides of the coin there, and that's what I don't believe. They went super aggressive on third, saying we don't trust our defense. And then on fourth down, they were like, wait, now we're going to be conservative and try and trust our defense. You can't do that. That's the only part that I disagree with here. But other than that, guys, players are paid to catch the ball. If Devontae Smith catches that ball on the goal line that he dropped, that's 7 points instead of 3. If Saquon Barkley catches that ball, that is a first down and the game's over. Yep. Catching the football that hits you square in your hands, we shouldn't be talking about anything else, guys. I'm sorry. I played receiver. I coach receiver. This is what I do. This is what we say all the time. Fundamentals. You just catch the football and the game is over. That's it.
No, I hear you. I disagree with running it is conceding the field goal. I disagree wholeheartedly with that. You got two opportunities to get 9 feet. Like you,
yeah.
Like
here's what I get what you're saying. Me off, Jake. Here's what I think gets lost in translation here. Right? Everybody's like Saquon's ripping off 10, 11, 12 yards a carry. Yeah, you could do that when you're on your own 30, your own 40, because there's 60 yards to defend behind you as well. So the box isn't condensed. When you're inside the 10, inside the 7, inside the 6, those safeties, even though they're back, are still 5-6 yards off the line of scrimmage as opposed to be in 2025. So those runs aren't going to come as easy. Everything is condensed in the red zone. So there wasn't a given that we were getting a first down, even with Saquon. Like, they were shooting the gaps. They were blowing it up. They brought in their jumbo package. They were ready to stop the run, which is why I thought the play call was brilliant. I'm sorry, but if you're paying Saquon and you're paying Hurts, this wasn't like Kenny Pickett throwing to Boston Scott or something, and we're like, oh, my God, he dropped it. No. These are two of the best players at their position, a wide-open pitch and catch that any one of us can make.
I'm with you. I still, like, again, I'll die on the hill. Like, I get what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. 9 feet with our offensive line with Saquon, and again, you're running the clock down. But I'm convinced you're getting at least 1.5 yards there, and then do the tush push if you really want to think about. That's a guaranteed 4 feet right there. But again, we're talking about catching a ball that everybody should do. He's getting paid a ridiculous amount of money. I want to talk about, you're saying like our $200 million quarterback or $36 million wide receiver. Tom, you talked about A.J. Brown's out. Like, what the offense is starting, new offense coordinator. Yeah, but you're looking at who should be top 10 tight end, a top 5 running back, a top 10 quarterback, a top 15 wide receiver in Devontae Smith, a guy you spent a 3rd round pick for in Jahan Dotson. I get it, a new offensive coordinator, but you still had training camp. You still had all this time where all you heard was, oh, Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown an interception. Oh, the offense is clicking. The offense is winning every day at training camp. Is the defense doing enough? Like, you're hearing that left and right. And now you're looking at a team that's unable to put stinking 30 points up against the Falcons, barely broke 20 points against the Falcons.
It's a tough one. And then you go back to what Joey said. You had the Devontae Smith drop touchdown pass. You have ineligible man downfield penalties, like 3 of them. I mean, drive killers. And then you go for it on 4th down instead of taking the points, and you have the Saquon drop. And I think it's an execution thing, and that's what's kind of frustrating is that, I mentioned that Kellan Moore's new, so it's going to take some time. But, like, it doesn't seem like it's a scheme thing. He's gotten, to be honest, Joey, what you said earlier about Britt and Covey and some of those plays to him, I personally, I know they're not crazy explosive plays or anything big, but I like them because it keeps, you know what? It's like, to me, it's like a short run and it keeps Jalen Hurts in motion and engaged. It's not like it keeps him in rhythm and throwing the ball. And I felt like those little plays and those little throws gave me more confidence. Okay, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8 even.
It's also eye candy for the defense to see Britt and Covey in motion again, and then you hit them up top later in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Things like just getting other guys, creating them, setting them up as threats. Oh, this is something we're going to do. This is something we're going to do. You have to watch for this. And I think that what was missing was a big play downfield, a couple shot plays.
I mean, the longest air yards passed was 17 yards.
They couldn't. This team did exactly what it had set out to do after about halfway through the first quarter, right? They knew they were not stopping the Falcons on the ground, and their defense was tired. So they needed to win this time of possession battle, and they did just that. So they had to dink and dunk, and they had to emphasize the run, and it was working. Yep. Right. The score was low because the possessions were low because each team was holding on to the ball for 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes per possession. Right. This team was never going to be this was never going to be a 40-35 game. They need to make sure that they gave their defense a rest by the time they got off the field. They couldn't afford to go 3 and out or have a 4 or 5 play drive, or else it was game over by the time our defense came out. We're 20 minutes in. We haven't even talked about how this Falcons offense was gashing the front 7 for this team.
Oh yeah,
right. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. Right. So the offense just reacted to that. Right, there's no. We simply could not afford to have a 40-yard completion because then your time of possession is drastically shortened, and we throw that defense right back out on the field, and we've got Jordan Davis huffing and puffing like a jumbo-sized Gatorade jug, right? That just got flipped over like somebody won the damn Super Bowl. He was a waste out there, just like
not
6
just
other guys.
Yeah,
just 6 other guys.
Nobody showed up. Nobody on the defensive line did a damn thing. You talk about can we afford to spend $51 million on Bryce Huff for 3 years? Through 2 weeks, he only has an assisted tackle. I understand. We talk about all the time. The defensive line can do a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet. Taking their gaps. Just open a hole for somebody else to come make a play. He ain't doing shit. He had a play where he fell down, and Shane smartly said, I'm going to be honest with you, this wasn't even his worst rep. And his asses fell on the ground. Nobody touched him. And he had worse reps than that. Josh Sweat, you cannot have that guy on the field on rundowns. You just can't. He's an absolute liability. They can just run towards his side every time, and it's 8-9 yards. We're healthy scratching Devin White. How bad must this guy be if he's healthy scratched with our front 7 playing how it is? This guy must be terrible because everybody else on the team has no want. You're benching Jalen Carter to start the game because he was late to a meeting. And even if he didn't, you had no idea he was even out there because he had no pressures all night. Nobody showed up.
This defensive line is one of the more underwhelming that I've seen in a long time from Philly. You would have some bad Philly teams. You would have some average Philly teams. You'd have some horrible offenses. But you knew you'd always have some dogs up front, right? You had Fletcher Cox for the longest time. You had your Trent Coles, your Hugh Douglases, Javon Curses, even around that, your Corey Simon, Broderick Bunkley, just guys that, were nasty. And you knew 4th and 1 and you're trying to run it on us, please, I welcome it. I welcome it because I know those guys up front are going to go crazy. And just to see, the gap integrity, Jake, I think what you said about Josh Sweat, zero gap integrity. I see him crashing down, and I see the tackle just letting him crash down because they know it's an outside run to his side, and he blocks himself because he's washed. I don't understand it. And look, I told you guys on 10 minutes ago that I blame this on the players. Catch the ball when it's thrown to you, execute when you need to do the stuff. I don't think it's really on the coaches as much as everybody says, but I will nitpick this about Fangio, and I will say this. While the players absolutely sucked on the D-line, I didn't see anybody winning one-on-one matchups besides maybe Milton Williams once, on that red zone sack. But everybody was stonewalled even by tight ends. It's one-on-one with a tight end with Bryce Huff, and you can't get off him. I think Fangio still didn't adjust. I think there's a point where if you're Vic Fangio, you can say, look, I know blitzing isn't my philosophy and I need to like wear that like a badge of armor, like blitzing isn't my thing. But when my D-line isn't getting home and I'm going up against a 37-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury in prime time in his second game coming off of it in a new system who just went under 40% pressure rate the previous week at home, I'm bringing the house against him. You know why? Because he's going to get it out quick. He doesn't want to get touched. He doesn't want to plan off that Achilles. He doesn't want to plan off that foot. So I didn't understand plays like 3rd and 12 where I think, okay, we're going to stop him. And we rush 4. You hit Kyle Pitts. Blankenship just comes in there like a Scud missile, misses a tackle, and they get 9 yards, allowing them to go for it on 4th and 3.
Yep.
Like, why are we always in a prevent defense with a 4-man rush? You can do that if you have absolute 4 dogs up front that you expect to get home. But when they're not, you got to adjust, man. You got to start sending the house.
No, and like the 5 times I felt like we sent 5 people, we always seemed to get really close. We always seem to force a bad play from them or be damn close to getting a stop. It's just, it made no sense. Like I would have loved when we ended up kicking the field goal. Again, we all talked about we should have went for it on 4th down there in the 4th. But when we did kick the field goal, when we kicked it off, I would love the very first play, we send the house. You like because
even a run blitz,
they got 25 yards. So like worst case, they're gonna get about 25 yards again. Like I'm not expecting them to bust off a touchdown there. And if they did, obviously that would have been a better thing because we know how it ended. We would have had plenty of time to go down and kick a field goal. But like first 2 plays should have just sent the house at him. Just been like, I know you're gonna pass it. I know you have no timeout, so you have 90 seconds. We're going to make it tough on you. We're going to trust Quignon. We're going to trust Slay, who, again, I've said it for 2.5 years. Slay's just a guy. Great guy. Nice person. Now, coach, he is. He is. Like, you want to sit on he locked down Justin Jefferson? That was 2 years ago, coach. That was 2 years ago.
If that 4 touchdown went anyone else, would you be saying this right now?
Again, what did he do all game, the whole game prior to that? And he let up the touchdown.
We didn't hear his name once.
I think like a 4-yard curl. He gave up like 2 4-yard curls before that, like that were short of the sticks. But I don't hear you saying anything about Quignon, who gave up about 45 yards on the last drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, no, it was atrocious. It was atrocious. You can't give up. You can't give up the outside. You give up the middle because they have no timeouts. You can't give up the outside, and he busts it. He busts to the middle like he thinks he's going to cut it in, which would have been a terrible decision with them having no time. So he gives up the outside. It's terrible.
Speaking of Quignon in that situation, working second, what happened to Isaiah Rodgers?
Yeah,
he wasn't on the field. We saw Cooper DeJean and we saw Avonte Maddox in there before him. I don't even know if he played a defensive snap. Did he?
Does he still have the hand injury going on? Was he inactive?
He was a kick return. He was on kick return.
Yeah. He didn't play on defense, I don't think. Vic Fangio definitely, you start to notice he definitely runs like a tight ship, and he doesn't really budge on that. Like you can see, like a guy like Isaiah Rodgers comes back, Devin White comes off an injury, and they're just like not even in the game. He's just going with the guys that have been healthy. So I don't know, man. Maybe they're trying to earn their
best ability is availability, and you boys got hurt, so ride the line.
Yeah, exactly. Like we got to. I don't know, man. We got to hope that there's some sort of adjustments being made. There's got to be. It's weird how they ran training camp. It seemed like certain guys were playing a lot with the first team, and then like out of nowhere at the end of the training camp, they're like, "Yeah, Nakobe's the starter," and then beat writers are like, "I knew it the whole time." And it's like all these guys, like, "Oh, Quignon's starting outside, and Maddox is inside, and Cooper DeJean actually is going to come up and maybe learn nickel." It's just like I don't know. The identity is confusing to me of this whole team.
There isn't one. There isn't one. It's hope that the offense makes mistakes. It's literally hope that they somehow mess up. We'll give you dink and dunks here and there. But like when you play smart quarterbacks, they're going to take what's available. And if you even miss one tackle, that dink and dunk turns into 14, 16, 20 yards. Like,
yeah, or a touchdown.
It's just 11 guys standing out there in spots.
I tell you what, Coach, much to your point, I'll just kind of piggyback on that. Just not adjusting. I was so hoping that they would start to send a lot more 5-man fronts, because you can just tell from Zach Bond that he has always played off the ball, because as soon as a lineman began to engage him, he looked like a deer in headlights. Like he was just going to give up on the play, just like if he was, I don't know, Josh Sweat or Nolan Smith. Like the guy might as well be at the line of scrimmage trying to secure a gap, right? Because it seemed like every single time these edges lined up wide, right, like an old wide 9, they were exposing the B gap, and it looked like you could drive a truck through it every single time. It looked like it was on rookie mode on Madden or something. I was making the post about it. It looks like it was that damn training camp dummies. Like they were just mowing the way, and there was nothing we could do about it.
Any fisherman will tell you that that is probably the best noise that you can possibly hear. You're sitting on the boat or you're sitting on the dock, you're reeling in your personal best fish, you got your buddy recording it, and what are you wearing but some raggedy old t-shirt that looks like crap? Why have that incredible moment ruined by not having on the best high-performance fishing shirt that you can get? That's where our friends at Tackle Up come in. Tackle Up is a fishing lifestyle and apparel company that is making some of the finest, highest quality fishing shirts I have ever worn. Also, we may have a Talkin 215 exclusive shirt on their website that you definitely need to check out. TackleUp.com. We know a ton of you go down to the Delaware beaches during the summer season, so when you're down there, you have to head over to Bethany at the corner of Atlantic and Garfield and check out Tackle Up's new storefront location. Selling Grundens, Hoo-Rags, and of course, their incredible design of high-performance fishing shirts. Definitely check them out, and while you're there, tell them that Talkin 215 sent you. I want to invite Dr. Mesa from our friends over at Delaware Orthopedic Specialists to join this show, give his thoughts on the game. I believe he was at the game. I think Kirk almost threw him a pass that was somehow not called intentional grounding as he threw a ball seemingly 7 rows into the stands. But yeah, that's fine. Doc, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining the show.
No problem. Yes, I was there, unfortunately, till the bitter end.
Now, you and Tommy Stakes. I mean, I want to ask you, I mean, I know you guys were at the game. Coach, Sean, I know you guys were home. Like, game ended. I must have sat on my couch for 45 minutes just sitting there. Like, TV's on. I'm kind of watching it, kind of not. Like, phone's in my hand. I'm kind of scrolling, kind of not. But I'm just sitting there like, what the hell did we just see? What the hell just happened? Like, was that something like a similar environment that you guys felt at the link?
Yeah, my friend who was with me put it perfectly. He said it was like that scene in Austin Powers where the steamroller's coming really slow and you can't stop it and it's just going to run you over. That's how we felt. I said, as soon as they did it, I'm like, they're going to go right down the field, and they let them. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean, put up some kind of a defense on this. It was awful. And then they got the ball back. And then Jalen threw that pick. I mean, he tried to get it all back in one shot. He had plenty of time in all his timeouts. He could have marched up the field, at least into field goal range.
Yeah.
And he blew that too. So it was one of those things where you didn't think it was going to happen, but watching the game the whole way through, they were lucky to be as close as they were, and they missed opportunities or didn't take opportunities. And, it's what happens. You can't, even though, it was close, they really never had the upper hand in that game at all.
No, and like, look, I get it. That interception was bad, and that first drive was bad. But aside from really the first drive and the last throw of the game, I thought Jalen played pretty well. I mean, you saw that vintage. Just when he needs a first down, there's nothing that's going to stop him from getting those yards that he needs. You saw some high quality throws. I mean, there's issues with him throwing on the run. He just doesn't seem to have the touch that he either once had or maybe we believed he had. And there's mistakes game in and game out from any quarterback, but really aside from those, I thought he had a pretty good game. But I'm with you, like there's no need, and I don't even care about getting hit or anything. Like that play was never there. The over-the-top safety was always watching him, was just waiting for him to throw that pass, and there was nothing there. That's a play where you throw it away or you dump it off and live to see the next play with the timeout in hand with 35, 40 seconds left in the game to get another 25 yards, if that, maybe 20 yards. There's no need for that, but you saw it in the, the Seahawks game last year?
Yep.
You're seeing it this game. Like, I get it, but like, I love Jalen. But if the Phillies tried to just swing nothing but home runs, and we saw them do that in the NLCS, you know what happens. We got to hold them to the same standard. Like, you got to just be able to march down the field and get in field goal range. Field goal wins it. Yep. Like, it's just march it down, get 5 seconds, 2 seconds left on the clock, and let Jake Elliott, who could, gun to your head, you mean like he could probably hit it from 63. Like, we'd all be shocked, but he has the leg to do it. We're seeing longer and longer field goals every stinking week in the NFL. Like, give him a chance to win the game, and to take that shot was really pretty inexcusable.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think Jalen was a little rusty, but the second half, Jalen was fantastic. I mean, he played great. It's kind of like you don't know who to blame. There's so many potential culprits. It's hard.
Yeah, pretty much anybody on defense.
Yeah.
But Doc, we're talking about, blaming defensive players and all. We're talking about the offense's inability, or maybe it was kind of a game plan to have these long methodical drives rather than take any of these deep shots trying to take the X plays and all. But obviously they missed AJ Brown. He had the hamstring flare up. Was it Friday? And then he's already come out. They very quickly ruled him out for this week, and then he came out and he said he's most likely going to miss at least next week. You're hearing reports that it could be 2, and then he gets the bye and comes out after that. Doc, we've talked to you a lot about hamstring injuries in our time having you on the podcast and everything, and it always seems to be, they're a tough injury. You don't really know what you're going to have until you go out there and really test it. But to know within a day or two that you're going to be missing 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, how bad is this injury, and is it going to be something we're going to be seeing stick around for the rest of the regular season?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, the good news is they're not saying it's surgical. I mean, that's the really good news. I think in terms of timing, I think 2-3 weeks is actually pretty quick getting them back on the field. Usually you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks with these type of injuries. So I'm hoping it's on the rather minor scale. I mean, he did it, I guess, in practice. I don't know, because it was so late. So I doubt he was doing like some full speed sprint route. So hopefully it's a relatively minor thing, but a minor hamstring is going to cost you 3 to 3 weeks. So unfortunately his timing couldn't be worse, I guess. But I think that by the bye or after the bye, he'll be back. And I think you just say those 2-3 weeks sort of caution, and it's sort of, you just progress as tolerated. But my thinking is he didn't hurt it like going some full out sprint. So that probably lessens the damage that he did to his muscle.
Well, I mean, I guess that's positive. I was kind of thinking like, a flare up in practice and all. And then you hear him say, if they really forced me, I might have been able to go out and play. Like, maybe it's something. But then in the same breath, he's like, but I'm also going to miss the next 2 weeks. So it's really odd. It's really tough. But we obviously need him back out there. We obviously need everybody out there healthy and playing to their best of their abilities. I also want to talk to you a little bit outside of Philadelphia, but we're all in a fantasy league together. Doc, I don't know if you play fantasy football or not or anything. But Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Achilles tendonitis, calf strain, whatever you want to say, a combination of both. All you're hearing coming out from their camp, from all of their reps, like official San Fran reps, is, he's limited. It's kind of bothering him. We expect him to be a full go week 1. And then out of nowhere, he's put on IR.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that we should all people that have Christian McCaffrey stakes should be pretty pissed about? Like, did they know early on that he's not playing?
I think they probably had an idea. I don't think they knew the extent. I think what probably happened is they probably got some further imaging and looked at it, and that's another tough one, because it's the same principle as a hamstring. It crosses 2 joints. It's a tendon. That tendon gets inflamed. A lot of people have chronic injuries that they can cope with, but once it starts to go, it can go for a long time. And I myself have Christian McCaffrey on my fantasy team, so I'm not happy about the prognosis. But I mean, these are hard injuries. These are tough, and they take a while as well. And who knows? This could be something that could hamper him through the whole season. Yeah. As an Eagles fan, that's good news, but as a fantasy owner, it's not.
Yeah, no kidding. And then also, sticking with fantasy football, is it possible that there are people that just have some kind of weird juju magumbo that when they draft these players, it just affects them? I'm talking about our very own coach here. Recently changed his team name to Injured Reserve.
Yeah.
I believe in a 14 or 15 man, including the bench, he has 5 players out on injured reserve or ruled out for at least multiple weeks. Is that something? Is there anything scientific between coach drafting players and them routinely finding themselves in the blue medical tent?
Probably.
I have the same disease as coach. I have Tua, I have Pacheco, I have Christian McCaffrey. You name them. I'm just sitting them on the bench. So yeah, I think it is. I think it's a predilection. I think there's a fine line between drafting
hyper-intelligence. To say
exactly,
it, Doc.
that's a key
Super
component
intelligent.
to it.
Deal with this.
Yes, smartest man in the room. Yeah, it's tough. It's been a lot of serious injuries early in the season. A lot of serious injuries, and I think Tua may be career-ending.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
You wonder about preseason, though. Actually, Joey was talking about it earlier before you hopped on. He said, well, it's for a different reason, but do you think the lack of play in preseason and the lightened load of training camp leads to this kind of like influx of injury early on in the season?
I think some of them, yeah. I think the tendinopathies may be tied to lack of activity, but you can't, say a fibular fracture is due to not being, or a bad concussion is due to what you did in training camp. But the others,
Tua played in training camp, his head wouldn't be scrambled eggs.
Yeah, exactly. The stuff with the hamstrings and the Achilles, some of these things like the Achilles tend to be chronic injuries, so they tend to, surface. So it's kind of like, do you risk injuring them in preseason and save them for the regular season, but they're there. So I don't know. I think some of the stuff like the hamstring stuff, I think getting a little bit of reps is good in preseason.
And Doc,
just to get the rust off.
With that Achilles tendonitis, does that show or flare up prior to an Achilles tear? I know you could just tear your Achilles just boom out of nowhere, but is this like a precursor that, hey, we need to take it light because these are the early signs that it may tear?
Yeah, well, it's basically your body's little warning sign. It's telling you something's not right there. And if you look a lot of times in the imaging, you see a thickening of that tendon, and that's a precursor to rupture. So what you have to be very careful with is you have to maintain, enough flexibility in that muscle and enough laxity on that tendon so it doesn't rupture. It's like you're running with damaged goods, and if you pop it, and especially someone who's a running back who does that burst or that push, it can go. It's Durant.
Kevin Durant. That's what happened to him. He had that calf strain, and they tried to bring him back in the finals, and it just popped.
Wasn't Dre Greenlaw last year in the Super Bowl? Wasn't he dealing with it?
Yeah, a lot of times there is.
He was dealing with Achilles tendonitis prior to that.
Joe Burrow last season. He had the calf injury in camp, and he tore his Achilles.
It's very similar to in the upper extremity rotator cuff tears. In the beginning, you have a sore shoulder, you're like, oh, it hurts. And then one day, just boom, it just goes. And then all of a sudden you're weak, can't lift with the arm. It's the same. That tendon is changed because of overuse and time, et cetera. So you have to be very careful with that. And that's why I think a lot of times you tend to be a little cautious because you don't want to risk, if McCaffrey tears his Achilles, it's over. So you're trying to minimize the chance of that happening.
Screw the Niners. So
yeah, I agree. But, as a doctor.
Real quick though, with Tua and all, like we saw the injury didn't seem to be any kind of crazy hit, and he goes down. Doc, in your experience and in my experience seeing stuff out in the ambulance, was that a little bit of posturing we saw once he goes down?
Yeah, it's the same thing he had the last time. He does, and that's a very scary sight. Usually it's temporary. Is not necessarily a sign of permanent brain damage, but you have these insults to your brain, and I guarantee somebody's going to be telling him that he should call it a career. I don't know whether he's going to take that advice or not, but if I was him, I'd be very nervous about, or his family, be very nervous about his long-term prognosis with this, because he's already showed signs, and that was if you look at that hit, it was not impressive at all. He curled, and to have that reaction to that type of hit is scary in and of itself.
No, exactly.
And there's a lot of data out there that talks about the second concussion. That's the scary one. So he's had the bad one, and presumably he's recovered. But to have one with such low trauma is very, very scary. And I think he really has to take a serious look at his future.
Yeah, this is now his third or fourth relatively significant concussion. Obviously, the one being the most notable, just due to him, being down on the field for such a long amount of time. But yeah, as someone that's had a fair amount of concussions themselves, like I'm hoping and praying that I got lucky and got out when it was fitting, and I don't have any kind of really significant long-term dealings. But he's definitely. I would certainly think he's got to just hang him up, because when you're getting that significant of an occurrence on what appeared to be a pretty low impact play, like you're going to get hit your quarterback. Like you're going to get sacked. You're going to get blindsided. You're a mobile quarterback at that. Like you're going to get another hit. And, that next hit could be extremely detrimental.
Plus, you got to look at his overall medical history. He had a hip dislocation. He's had 2 ankle surgeries. He's had a lot of damage on his body. And the unfortunate thing with concussions, at least acutely, is you can't tell the full extent of the damage that your brain takes. And that's something you're not going to know, unfortunately, for a while. So it's like it's a serious gamble.
Yeah. No, I mean, you heard Jason Kelsey on the broadcast last night. They're asking him like, oh, you're watching these guys out there. Do you have the itch? And he's like, oh, yeah, of course I have the itch. But you know what doesn't have the itch? My ankle.
Yeah.
He's like, my ankle doesn't have the itch. I'm feeling much better now than I've felt in years. Like, and that's the ankle. Like, we're talking about a guy's brain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to play it smart. You got to play it safe there.
Absolutely.
Well, Doc, we gave our preseason predictions of 15-2. As Sean said, we're going to have to go 14-1 to be able to hit that mark through our last 15 games. Obviously, this was in the preseason, and we had nothing to go off of other than our bloated egos and expectations. 2 weeks in, we now get to ask you your prediction for the remainder of the season. What's your overreaction through 2 weeks for the remainder of the Eagles regular season?
Well, it's not necessarily an overreaction. I think the problem with this team is it could have gone, like you said, 15-2, or it could go 9 and whatever, even 7 and whatever, and it wouldn't be that surprising. I mean, you have two new
that'd be pretty surprising.
Well, you got 2 new coordinators. You don't know, your defense, if you look at the last games they played last year, what the hell was that? And how do you change all that? You got to give Fangio a little bit of leeway because he was working with basically nothing, and they got rid of their best defensive player. So, I mean, you really got to see how this gels. It's not looking so great now, but I mean, and I agree with you guys. I came on when you guys were ranting and raving about the defensive line, and I saw nothing from those guys. No stunts, no spins, no nothing. It's bull rush, and they didn't do anything. Yeah. They had 1 sack, and it was Milton Williams. It wasn't anybody you expect. So I think that and coming off a statue, like you mentioned, coming off an Achilles repair at close to 40 years old, that's the guy that should be on the floor. He should be looking at the sky the whole time.
I mean, Thomas Booker was our best defensive lineman.
Yeah, I mean,
he needs to play more. He needs to play more.
He played 8 snaps, and you heard his name 6 of the times.
Yeah, I had to ask somebody if Huff was out there because I didn't see him do anything, which is scary.
Well, then yes, he was checking to see if 98 was on the field. I wasn't sure if Jalen Carter was on the field.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I really can't see them going into New Orleans and pulling out a victory unless something radically changes. I mean, I watched that Cowboys game and those guys destroyed them. And you think Dallas has a decent defense, but that game scares the hell out of me. So 2 wins will end. I mean, the 2 losses will come next week, I think. But season, I don't know. I think it's probably going to be. I'm hoping for 10 wins at this point.
Wow,
realistic, and that's being very optimistic.
And that's playing the Commanders and the Cowboys a total of 4 games.
Hey, the Commanders aren't.
The Commanders and the Giants. Excuse me.
I mean, the one thing they got
had 0 touchdowns against the Giants. Calm down.
But they got a mobile quarterback, and he'll be maturing. I think as long as he doesn't get hurt. I'm thinking 10.
All right, fair enough. Well, Doc, we really appreciate the time. Obviously, you hear the knowledge he has. For anybody having any kind of injuries or complaints, 302-655-9494 for Delaware Orthopedic Specialist. Go to delortho.com. to find a specialist near you. Locations all through Delaware. Why trust anyone other than a specialist? Doc, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, thanks.
Doc, you play poker?
Not well, so you might want
consider
it a donation.
Perfect.
Tom's coming over. Got a little poker night Saturday. You sound like the perfect candidate. So we'll.
How about I just leave the money and just go, and you guys just take it? Because
I still want to hang out with you, but sure. We'll take a donation. All right, Doc. Really appreciate the time.
Oh, no problem. Have a good one.
You too.
All right.
Bye. Yeah, Tom. I'd take Doc's money.
That was the best session ever. I'd feel bad taking any of his money. He's but you know what he's doing? He's a smart guy. He's hustling us. Oh yeah, I play, but I'm not too good.
Yeah, he's a shark. He's a shark.
He's mobile app right now, playing online right now. He's like, yeah, I'm All right,
Yeah, like, you boys ever see the Steve Martin movie Sergeant Bilko? Steve, it's an old Steve Martin movie. It's great, but he's like a gambler and he's a sergeant in the army, and he's just like obsessed with gambling. And he has somebody invites him to a card game. He's like, "Oh, poker! I think I've heard of that game." And then he's just like, "Oh, a full house! What a fun name!" And he just like wipes the floor with him.
That's funny. That's good.
That'd be old Doc Mesa out there, just like, "Oh, is all of the same suit good?" Oh, it is. Gentlemen, ugly loss. Phillies are up 1-0 now. Castellanos obviously needed to do what he had to do, but after the Eagles just died, and that's what he does. He hits home runs after the death of teams and individuals. And
I'm tired of all these damn national tragedies, man. It's got Nick Castellanos playing like the best player in the MLB.
There was one last night at Lincoln Financial Field, and he had to homer because of it.
Yes, he did. First at bat, I think, bat for him, I believe, on a 440-foot, 106-mile-per-hour for the bat, just left center field, bomb.
Let me ask you boys something. Let's make a parallel here, right? We're talking about the Phillies just real quick and comparing it to the Eagles. I've seen it floating around social media, and it was hard for me to really realize, but it's true. I think they said we're 2-9 in our last 11, something like that. And look, last year's player, last year's schemes, last year's coordinators, totally different. So you can't really hang your hat on that. But just like baseball, you can have good players here and there, but if you don't have a closer and the game is close in the ninth inning, if you don't have a closer to shut that thing down, or you don't have, I'm just going to say it, a closer to shut it down. When is the last time we saw the Eagles close out a game? And I was thinking of this before. I was thinking about this before I came on, right? And I thought of the Buffalo game in overtime where we ran down for a touchdown. Jalen Hurts ran it in for a touchdown. Great. But if you remember that, on that drive, yes, Buffalo kicked the field goal their first possession. They had Gabe Davis wide open for a touchdown. Walk-off touchdown, game over. He turned the wrong way where Josh Allen threw it. But that's an easier catch than Saquon had to make the other night. That could have been an easy walk-off.
You know where our last closer is? He's sitting outside of the New York Jets facility demanding more money. First half of last season, we had a closer, okay? Any single time that the defense was on the field, the last drive of the game, you might as well have had Enter Sandman playing as Hassan Reddick came out onto the damn field, right? He's gone now, and you see it immediately. There's nobody on that defense that's here to make a play. Josh Huff. Bryce Huff is just like his face mask in the dirt.
You might as well call him Josh Huff.
Well, but even on offense, I'm asking on offense too. Like we saw Drew Lock and Jackson Smith and Jigma go down and close on us. We saw Kirk Cousins last night go 80 yards in 45 seconds with no timeouts and no Achilles. Like we've seen those guys do it offensively, but even when we get the ball back, sometimes there's a penalty and we're starting off 1st and 20, or there's an eligible man downfield as soon as we get or offensive pass.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Jalen had the chance to be a closer.
Like what is going on? Who is going to be that guy for us? And look, I know there's AJ Brown, there's Jalen Hurts, there's Saquon, there's all these great guys that we have. But when the game's on the line, who's taking that final shot? Who's the Kobe Bryant? Who's the guy that's like, man, I get the ball into his hands, I feel good. Like, who is it? Offense or defense?
Let's be honest. Jalen had the chance to be the closer last night.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say that
Saquon had the chance.
Yeah, that's a better point.
Saquon had the chance.
Yeah.
I tell you what.
But I'll tell you. Go ahead, Sean.
Just more of as an aside. I apologize to everybody that I had told that Dallas Goedert was going to be a major portion of this offense this year. It seems like even in this offense with a brand new coordinator, it's incredibly apparent that 22 Super Bowl took Goedert's soul. He has not been the same player since through all last season. I don't know if it's just his will to compete. I don't know if the offense just isn't featuring him because he can go to hell. Like, I don't know what it is, but he just doesn't have it. It's like aliens came from another planet and made him touch a football and pulled all of his special talent into the damn football so that some Monstars can have it instead. But it's gone. It's done. He could have been a closer, and instead, I don't even know how much I want him on this team right now.
Stop it. Stop it.
Well, I'll say this. In 2022, I said this on Twitter, too, in my video, so I'll just repeat kind of what I said. But in 2022, that's exactly what I was talking about. Weren't you more confident in 2022 when we had the ball at the end of games? You knew we were going to run the ball to ice it out. You knew Jalen was going to make the right decisions. And then on defense, like you said, Sean, Hassan Reddick made so many game-wrecking plays with the game on the line.
Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, Javon Hargrave made big plays. Like, we had a bunch of D-line some veterans. Fletcher Cox obviously was on that team. We ended up picking up Sue. Josh Sweat had a great year. And it just felt like those are the two things you need to close games in the NFL. It's a really good pass rush and a really strong offensive identity, like something that you know is going to work. Like, hey, when in doubt, when everything else isn't working, this is what we can do, and we can win with this. And since 2023 started, we haven't had any of those two things consistently. The pass rush died down late in the season last year, and Jalen Hurts, the Jets game, the Seahawks game, throwing inexplicable interceptions with the game on the line that you just would – He has temporarily kind of lost a little bit of my trust in terms of us having the ball. Like, I can't even feel confident in that. Like, oh, Eagles have the ball at the end of the game. Well, it's Jalen's time. Like, he'll be fine. Like, he's shown us that it's not always his time, and that's something that needs to be corrected as well. And we talked about it last week on the show. Oh, isn't it great that all we need to worry about is Jalen Hurts cleaning it up? Well, so far, I mean, I thought he played good. I'm not putting anything crazy on him, but he does make those mistakes at key times, and it just blends right in with the other team, with everyone else's mistakes. It all compounds together, and it adds to a loss. So those are the two things: a pass rush and something on offense that we know is going to be there for us at the end of games when we need it, and we don't have the pass rush or that on offense right now. So that's what we're struggling with.
I think we're overreacting just a little bit to the whole Jalen not being able to take command of the team, because this was the first game in a while where I feel like he put the team on his back, right?
Yeah,
he was willing this team to get them to where they were, and we are still one Saquon reception from this whole conversation. The first 58 minutes of this game, we're having a totally different perspective on.
Yeah,
right?
but you're gonna have the drops like that. You're gonna have games that you should have put away and you don't. And he had 45 seconds and 2 timeouts to get 40 yards, and he should have done it. Like, obviously, it shouldn't have fallen down to him, but it did. And there's gonna be times where bullshit happens, and you need your number one to be your number one. And you've seen it, like we said, in the Jets and the Seahawks in this game, and he didn't do it. And you need somebody, and again, it's an overreaction where, like, I'm saying it's an overreaction, but you've seen it enough times where it's like, is that guy gonna do it at the end? Because he does it when you need him to in the middle of the game, where it's like, oh, 4th and 7, and Jalen busts off this crazy run where he drops the shoulder and carries guys through. He wills guys to the, a 2-point conversion in the Super Bowl where it looks like he's stopped for a 2-yard loss, and he fights his way all the way in the end zone. Like, you see that drive, you see that nothing's going to get between him and that mission and that goal. But then in those situations where you need 40 yards and you got 2 timeouts, all of the field, and you're seeing, again, just forced passes deep into the terrible coverage. It's unnecessary.
We got. I think, Jake, you make a good point in terms of not letting Jalen off the hook. It's like anything else. We had a chance with Saquon to make that catch. We had a chance with our defense to get a stop, and we had a chance with Jalen to get a field goal, and all 3 of those things failed. So we had really 3 chances to go win the game in different ways, and they all came up short. And the only reason I would point out Saquon is, first of all, it happened first. And second of all, I expect that's the highest degree of the lowest degree of difficulty, I think, which is sad to say about our defense. Yeah, Kirk Cousins going 70 yards. give me something else. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, an underhand toss to Saquon still a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
And you realize, like, one sack, the game is over.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they have to get up, scramble back to the line. The receivers are already deep. Cousins either has to spike it, and now you're looking at 3rd and 25 with Cousins with no timeouts. Yeah. One sack ends that game.
I don't know if it's a 15-yard sack, but
or you know what I'm saying. 3rd and 20, whatever it is. But with the point about Jalen Hurts, and I thought about deleting some tweets, not really because I don't do that shit, but like going back and making fun of myself. I saw Jalen Hurts look like Nick Foles when he was running sometimes, like kind of jogging. Let me hurry up and get to the sideline. And instead of 5 yards, I'll get 1 yard. It's like tiptoe around things. And then I see him look like the best scrambling quarterback I've ever seen in my life, where he's ripping off 25-yard runs, juking people, finding the hole, being like decisive, not overthinking. And I'm thinking to myself, why does it take, like Jake just said, to a certain point in the game for you to switch into that mode? You know you can be that. We've seen you do it. And this is why, like, Jalen Hurts defenders or whatever you want to call us, Eagles fans, whatever, defend him so much because, like, we've seen the superhuman powers. Like, sometimes you're out there doing Clark Kent shit trying to blend in, and we're like, bro, like, take that off. Put the cape on. We know what you can do. Go save them. We've seen you do it. Like, we don't need Clark right now. We need Superman. And I just don't understand why he, like, turns it on and, like, turns it off sometimes.
I think that the reason he does that is because he's limiting the hits on himself. And
then don't do it ever.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, like, when the game's on the line, he'll do it. But early in the game, I just don't think he wants to risk that stuff. So
that's dumb.
But then do teams know that? Do teams know that? Then they're like, oh, we don't have to have gap integrity because it's first 1.5 quarters, 2 quarters. Jalen's not going to run.
Yeah, I feel like it's always a threat, but I don't know. It seems like ever since he got paid, like that 2020. See, the thing is, like, we saw Carson in 2017, and it ended his career because he sold his body for everything he did, like those big plays, the craziness. And I think 2022, that's what Jalen was doing. He was going all out, and then he got the contract. Now he's like, my long-term health is more important, and he's right, but
no, he's not. If that's a thought process, because we're talking like. You got paid to be the guy. You got paid to be the guy in 22. You got paid to be that guy.
He's got to get better. You got to get better with throwing the ball, making plays. Like those are the things that keep you in the league and keep you on the field. And running,
yeah, exactly. If you want to take a step back in one area, then fucker, you better take a step up in another area. And again, most of the game is not on Jalen. Like, I don't want people to be like, oh, talking 2 and 5, Jalen caught. No, most of this game is not on Jalen. But you got to hold people accountable. And I pride this podcast, and we always hold everybody accountable. Nobody gets a pass. No matter who it is, it could be our favorite player. Like, we could have Jordan Mailata, podcast M-Hop. Jordan Mailata could have some game-wrecking play that he blows the game, and we'd be like, look, man, I love you, but you gotta do better than that. You're top 5 paid tackle in the league. Like, I don't give a shit that you played rugby and never played football in your life. Like, we hold people accountable, and Jalen Hurts has a number of things that you need to hold accountable.
Right, but that's not one of them to me. I don't agree that he should
if
run.
If you take a step back in one area, then you better take a step up in another, and he's not.
That's what he's trying to do. That's why we brought Kellan Moore in. That's what they're trying to do. That you have to see.
All right, well then let's see it.
But yeah, I'm not saying it's working or not working. I'm just saying that's what the goal has to be, because you have to protect your investment. You can't have him playing that young man's game. It just doesn't last in the NFL. Name a player that it's going down Cam Newton and Andrew Luck alley if you want to have him running. He's not a tailback. You can't play like that all the time. It's just not realistic. You want him to burn out in 2 years, then
all right, well, then stop calling so many quarterback draws.
I agree with that.
Stop calling quarterback draws. You don't want to do it, then stop making us watch him jog to the sideline for a yard. If you don't want him to do it, then stop calling.
I don't know why they call those. I really don't. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I really do. And I said it in the stands last night. Why would you call that on 3rd and long? You have a quarterback that you just paid. It's 3rd and 9. It's not 3rd and 18. It's 3rd and 9, and they call a quarterback draw. But
if it was in the 4th quarter, would he have gotten that when he needed to?
I just don't think that's a creative call. I think he should run when it's more improv. I don't think you have.
No, I think he's a much better. I'd say he's a very bad scripted runner.
I'd say he's one of the worst in the league in scripted runs. Improv runs, he's top tier.
Yeah, I don't like the scripted runs at all for your quarterback. I really don't.
No. And he is the worst at the read option
every time because you don't have.
He is so bad at the read option. He has no idea when to give it to Saquon or take it himself.
And it's hard. It's hard to protect yourself when your only option on the play is like you pull the ball and you're like, I know I'm running. There's no passing.
Yeah,
there's nothing to pass to. I'm taking the ball and I'm running. It scares the heck out of me because the play has to end with him on the ground, and that's not good. I like when you can protect yourself when he sees everything and he can roll out. Run and control how he's going to end the play more so than when they call the design runs. But he had a couple crazy ones last night.
Yeah,
it's just not a good sign to me that they're relying on that. I thought that was in the past because that's why we brought Kellan more, but I guess not.
Yeah, and you saw too many times where, and again, I need to watch the all 22, but you saw too many times where he had a perfect pocket and he's standing there not pulling the trigger for 5, 6, 7 seconds. Again, I need to watch the all 22. Maybe it was locked down in the secondary, but I'd have a hard time believing the Falcons locked down all of our guys. But again, we had no A.J. Brown. We had Johnny Wilson out there. Gene Seguring, his appearance, just squeezing that bat so tight that he nearly did a mid-game jersey swap. But anyway, final thoughts?
We'll get them next week.
We'll get them next week. Yeah, we'll get
final thought, man. 15-2 is still alive.
He's not wrong. Even a loss next week, it's still alive. Coach,
my final thought is next week's game is going to be an ass kicking one way or another. It's not going to be a close game. Either we're beating the hell out of them or we're going to get the hell beat out of us. I don't think there's any in between.
I like it. Tommy?
Well, I'll say this. I'll leave it on a little bit of a positive, I think a realistic note. It's tough to come to the conclusion of this after 2 weeks, but I got to adjust my expectations on this team and give them a little more patience than I initially thought. I don't think that they look underdeveloped, and then 2 new coordinators. You're hoping the offense comes around. I think I'm a little more confident in that, but I really think this defense is a little further back than what we thought, and maybe some of these guys really just will never be good, but I'm going to give him a little more patience and let Vic Fangio work with them and see what he does and see how he adjusts. But that's the underdeveloped part of the team is new coordinator and a lot of new young players. Offense should be okay. But, man, this might just be a build this defense year, see what we can do. But I hope in December it starts coming around almost the opposite of last year. Let's just put it that way.
Tom, I'm going to need a preseason of these final thoughts because that was long.
Okay.
Final thought, bring back Hassan Reddick.